One small step for man, one giant.
On August 1st, 1981, the world was introduced to music television. MTV, along with the emergence of synthesizers, widely used in mainstream dance and new wave music, forever changed the face of the industry. Bands across the U.S. started to emulate the popular sound flooding the airways. In November of 1983, a cover band from Corpus Christi, Texas, made its debut at a nearby college campus. That band was Diamond's Edge.
There were several other versions of Diamond's Edge before this version of Diamond's Edge got started. Me and my good friend from junior high had played in a band together in junior high. We did a few gigs here and there. He was playing piano and I was singing at the time.
We learned about 5-6 songs and we'd play some shows at school in junior high. And then after junior high, started going into high school, and of course people like Eddie Van Halen started coming out and bands like that, and Judas Priest I'd start listening to.
And then we both kind of learned guitar in high school. After we got out of high school, we started these hard rock bands. We were playing everything from AC/DC to Black Sabbath, Judas Priest. You know, that's what we were playing. And so we made a band and we called it Diamond's Edge, and got my cousin to come in and sing. Found out he could do some great AC/DC, the newer AC/DC, Back in Black stuff.
That was my first real gig with Diamond's Edge. That was an early inception of Diamond's Edge. I think they had been together before me, done a few gigs.
You know, I could probably count the amount of gigs we did on one hand. And it was fun, but you know, there's not a lot of jobs playing that kind of music.
We weren't getting any gigs. We were doing a bunch of talent shows. We were doing, I remember the 2112 Club in Kingsville. It's just a blues bar, and we're singing, you know, Sammy Hagar, Ozzy Osbourne.
Music was changing. You know, MTV came around, and music was just having a whole different feel. New wave music was kind of popular. Bands started playing more and more of that, and I think that's what we wanted to do, and so we needed a keyboard player. So we reached out to my brother, and of course he wasn't interested.
As far as I know, he and Willie were doing it, he and Rick, and they were doing it, but they were more heavy metal, you know, AC/DC. Rick had, you know, the voice to do all that and everything, and so they were like, not much keyboards in that, so.
A friend of mine was doing some studio work, and I helped him out in the recording studio, and that was kind of a cool experience. And I got with Will, and I told him, hey, you know, let's write a song. We'll coax my brother to come in and play in the studio, because I think he'll do that.
They had written a song, and they said, you want to try to do something with it? I think I had bought a keyboard or something, my first synthesizer and stuff. And I said, well, yeah, let me see what I can do with it. And, you know, I guess they were suitably impressed. They said, oh, okay, let's cut it in the studio. And I really don't know how it happened. We just started jamming together and saying, well, let's start a band and stuff like that.
We did this song that Gerard and Will had written, Don't Send Your Love. And, you know, I was proud of it. You know, when I listened to it, you know, the musicianship, we were just budding musicians, but it was a cool song, and we entered it in a radio contest, the C101, and we got second place, you know, and it was like, wow, okay, we're not bad.
Diamond's Edge recorded their first original project in 1982 at Hacienda Recording Studio. Their experience recording Don't Send Your Love energized the musicians to start gigging in Corpus Christi, like several other bands in the area.
There was a real popular band playing at a club called the Iron Horse, and I used to go see them play all the time. It was always packed there. They were the house band, and that band was the Little Ducks from Mars. The stuff they were playing was everything you'd hear on MTV, and then they were writing their own songs too. And I said, this is what we need to do.
Unable to find a dedicated bass player, the two guitarists from Diamond's Edge decided to trade off covering bass guitar duties. Once the band worked through a few kinks and missteps, they developed a solid sound. Then the gigs started to pour in.
I'll always remember our first gig, because it was, we were anxious, we were excited. We were playing at the pub at the Texas A&I campus, the university in Kingsville. And they had a pub there and they had bands, and they hired us. It was kind of cold and a little rainy at that time because it was, early November.
One thing I remember is that we had a flat on the way there from Corpus. I think it was about a 45-minute drive, and we had a flat, and it was like, oh wow. So all these things that could go wrong, but we eventually got there.
And it was one catastrophe after another. It was our very first gig. I said, this does not look well, but we pulled it off, and we had a good time.
They liked us. They liked the music we played, and so we were kind of heading in the direction of where we wanted to go.
Wow, it was a lot of fun. That's when we got the ball rolling, and we started getting gigs, We started getting paid gigs.
Playing at Elizabeth, some of the gigs there were really awesome. Playing at Bob Aruba's when they said they would never have local bands. And it was the Hot Club. We're just a local band, and we're, usually, bands from Austin were considered gods, We got to play to a hometown crowd, and they liked it, and they got off to it. And then some of the smaller gigs, like some of the places in Port A, that were like, dives type, Sometimes we had a great time.
Hungry to create their own material, Diamond's Edge found Gary Beck's recording studio where they recorded 3 newly written songs in late 1984.
At one point, we decided to get back into the studio, and we looked around. Hacienda was kind of pricey, and we heard about this really small studio that was in a residential area, and it was owned by Gary Beck. He was a local country musician and sound engineer, and so we looked into it. The price was right.
He set up a studio in his own home, and we bought time, and we said, oh, we have some originals. Let's start doing something, because I'd like to write. Rick and I wrote really well together. I would do a jam, and we'd just get together and jam for like an hour or two and record it all. And then I would listen to it and I'd say, that's the verse, that's the chorus, that's this, and then we'd all get together, hey, let's do this, let's do that.
In 1985, both guitarists were anxious to hang up their bass playing duties when they discovered a mutual friend had learned to play the instrument.
And so we all worked at a movie theater called Cinema 4 in the Pueblo Park Mall. And there was a guy there by the name of Jeff Hayes who he was our friend. He was a good friend of ours, and he'd seen us play, and he wanted to join the band, but he didn't know how to play an instrument. So he said, hey, I'll play bass.
They were playing at Bayfest when Bayfest was kind of in its infancy, and I went to see them, and it was like, man, watching Diamond's Edge perform on stage at Bayfest, I just got hooked. I was like, oh, I want to do that, And at the time, Gerard and William were trading off on bass because they didn't have a bass player with them at the time. And I remember approaching them and saying, I don't remember Gerard or Willie, but I said, hey, if I learn how to play the bass, could I join your band? And I think there was a little snicker, because it was like, yeah, whatever. But I bought myself a bass. I started playing to records and kind of just taught myself how to play.
I think within a year, he was playing pretty good. He was playing he called it a junkyard band. It was some band that played out of the garage, and we went to hear him one time.
I think it was, I don't know, maybe a week later, they approached me and asked me if I would be interested in joining Diamond's Edge. And I was like, well, hell yeah, so the rest is history.
His personality, we all clicked together. It all works great. He's a great bass player, great singer now. We found out, we went, whoa, I remember he says, I think I can do outfield. This was back in the day when outfield first came out. We went, yeah, right. He opened his mouth, we all just went, oh, wow, and so, and he really just, and he's such a nice guy, so humble, so talented, it's just unbelievable. We're just lucky.
In early 1986, Will Schull departed Diamond's Edge.
And I was at a point in my life, I'd already graduated college, and I felt that we weren't gonna, the funny thing is, back in the day, you were in the band because you wanted to make it big. At least that's what our aspirations were. Now, we're in the band just to have fun. But back then, I kind of figured, it's not gonna happen. Are we wasting our time? I just had doubts about it, and so opportunity business-wise came up, and I took it, and I left Corpus. And then I guess within a year, though, I got bored with that. And I was kind of lost, didn't know what I really wanted to do. And met an Army recruiter at a Dairy Queen, and he suckered me in, and I was gone.
I remember that being kind of scary because I was so new still with Diamond's Edge, and I don't even think that at the time I had all of the songs down yet. And I remember Gerard telling me, we're going to get tight now, because now William was gone, you know, and there were still some songs he played bass on, and I would just kind of step aside and let him do them because I didn't have them all down yet, but I had to learn quick.
I was real kind of floored at the time because he's always kind of been there, and here I had to take on all the guitar duties myself. And but you know, I stepped up and we did it, and we continued on without him.
The band continued as a 5-piece, developing their music skills and landing better jobs at popular venues. It was during this time that they were asked to open for several well-known acts appearing in Corpus Christi.
One time we were supposed to play at the Texas Sky Park. There was a festival going on there. We were supposed to play on one of the smaller stages. And at the last minute they said they had a band cancel at the main stage.
We were delegated to a small stage, you know, we're just a local band. And the Austin band either quit or didn't show up or something, and they said, you're moving up to the big stage.
And we got to open for The Fix, and we were just floored. It was the first time we played at a stage that big and a sound system that large with a full light show.
The other ones that stand out to me is when we got to do things like open for acts that were known, like Foghat and the Romantics, Fabulous Thunderbirds.
We opened for Pat Travers one time. And so we were always kind of the go-to band when they had some kind of major act coming in. They wanted us to open the show.
They always offered us, I think they offered us first dibs for opening for any of these name acts that came through there. And of course, man, we were like, hell yeah, we'll do it. You know, it was awesome. It was really cool.
Around 1988, Diamond's Edge met a talented live sound engineer that eventually became a permanent fixture at their performances.
After I left back in 85, 86, Gerard hooked up with Jamin, and he was their sound guy ever since then.
I was doing a 2-day festival. I was working one of the stages, and I had all these real crappy bands at that time. And I heard somebody told me that Diamond's Edge was going to play, and I'd heard of them, but I'd never heard of them. And somebody said, well, they're really good. And I said, well, I'll be anxious to hear them and all. So just before they were getting ready to play on my stage, they had an opportunity to play on the big stage.
You know, he was kind of playing with everyone, and we were kind of doing our own thing. Well, years later, we hired the drummer from one of the bands that he did sound for. He said, hey, let's use Jamin for sound. And we said, okay.
At the time, I was running sound for the Cats. And after that gig, I think I got in touch with Gerard, or they got in touch with me somehow, and then I went to one of their shows and to check them out, and then next thing you know, I was running sound for them.
He's just unbelievable. You know, one time we didn't use him, and everybody was like, oh, they don't sound as good, you know, but, you know, he's the master of it, you know.
He's really honed his craft, and he's probably, dare I say, one of the best sound guys in the South Texas area.
In 1989, Diamond's Edge returned to Gary Beck's recording studio to record their first full album of new music.
Our first studio project, self-titled Diamond's Edge, was a series of Marty songs and Rick songs, and then I know Gerard and I wrote one together.
We'd all contribute, you know, as much as we could. And so that's how it kind of formed. And listening back some of the stuff, I went, it wasn't too bad, you know.
There we met a sound guy that had just gone to sound recording school up in Ohio, and he was up on all the latest technology and how to get us the sound that we really wanted. He helped us produce our material, and we came out with a product that we were real proud of.
Gerardo Hernandez was the sound engineer that did everything, and the guy's phenomenal at what he does. He knows his business.
One day he says, hey, there's this group coming in, and you know, get you to do the session. I said, okay. He said, yeah, they're kind of a rock group, but they're pretty good. I said, yeah, we'll see. And it was this group called Diamond's Edge. And they came in, hey guys, and Matt, and said, yeah, we kind of knew some of the same people, and okay, that's cool, let's get in here. And I was loving on everybody, we got it going, and they started playing. I'm like, hey, they got something going on here. And it was a breath of fresh air to me. I was like, wow, this is awesome. Finally, a band that really knows how to play, musicians who know what they're doing. And man, we had a blast.
After several years, the band added a female singer to the lineup. This gave them the ability to expand the cover material.
We'd been together a while. I think, we were maybe, like any family, we were kind of getting a little irritated with one another. I think Rick was kind of losing interest in the project. So we really didn't know where his head was at. He quit on us a couple of times, and we said, hey, we should kind of find someone to replace him.
It was getting to the point where they were getting tired of my shenanigans.
Shenanigans? What kind of
Yeah, well, I was immature. I was, I drank a lot during gigs, and that never goes well.
I remember we auditioned a lot of people, and this one girl showed up at the auditions, and she nailed some Madonna. She could sing, there's no doubt about it. And she was a showman or showwoman herself. She loved the attention and loved being on stage, and she did a good job.
But we were didn't want to let Rick go. So we said, let's go talk to him, see where his head's at, see if he's open to having two singers in the band.
So I think they auditioned this girl, Mighty Estrada, as a replacement. But then I found out later that Gerard said, look, let's give him another chance, because I'd been with them for so long. He drives up. So I think at that point we started the dual lead singer thing.
We settled on her because, well, number one, she could sing, and she did great. Like I said, Madonna, Jody Watley, the popular songs that were out at the time. She did a really good job. Stevie Nicks.
She played with us a while, and she was good. Her mindset was a little different from what we were doing. She didn't like playing the smaller clubs. We couldn't depend on whether she was going to show up or not for certain gigs.
She would call in sick for gigs and stuff like that, and that's funny. It's not a regular job. You can't call in sick unless you're maybe on your deathbed. But
The lineup with the added female singer was short-lived. The band continued performing as a five-piece for about a year or so until Rick Pro walked away from the project.
I needed to, get myself together, and just personal things I needed to work out. It was not a good thing. It was, you hear about these bands that break up, and and there's a lot of animosity, and over the years, time heals. And that was tough. I mean, I chose to walk away, but then within a couple of weeks, maybe a month, I was like, hey, can I come back to the band? And they said, well, look, we've decided to move on.
He had other issues going on in his life, and he decided to walk away from it. So we continued on without him, and we just decided to go four-piece and not replace him.
The vocals were left up to Gerard and Marty and myself, so we just kind of divvied everything up three ways. And I was singing all kinds of stuff, and that was fun.
We did pretty well with that, four-piece. Because Gerard, Jeff, and I would sing. We would just take turns. And we're doing a lot of material then, too.
Diamond's Edge worked as a four-piece band over the next few years until late 1995. The remaining musicians recorded a new album that was released in 1996.
After Rick left and we played for a while, we were getting that itch to record some new material. Marty had been writing all kinds of stuff, and I'd written a few songs. So we sat down and said, let's do this. And we were talking to Gerardo Hernandez, who'd done our previous recordings and projects. And he said, hey, you don't have to spend all that money in the studio. Take the money you would spend going into renting a studio, and let's buy all this new digital equipment. You can do it from the comfort of your home, and let's record that album.
They set up a little home studio and went over there. Man, we just kept working together over the years, and I've always had a blast working with Gerard and Marty and the whole gang, man. Just fun.
After the release of their second full album, Diamond's Edge went on an extended hiatus. The remaining members eventually disbanded due to family and work issues.
It does take a toll on your family life when you're always out playing.
Life gets in the way. The guys were married, they had families. It was getting difficult staying out all night on the weekends.
Just needed some time out from it. The whole set up, tear down, playing and learning new songs and being away from the family and things of that nature. It got, I think we just got kind of burned out, is what happened.
I was just burned out. You know, we've been playing, what, like 12 years, you know. And creatively, I was getting really, I lost my creativity. You know, I had a writer's block or whatever. And I just kind of I said, well, I can't force it, so I'm just going to chill.
A few years later, Rick Pro and Marty Munoz reunited to write some new music.
Gerard called me up and we started hanging out again. We went to a concert together. And then I reconnected with Marty and we just started writing songs again.
And Rick and I had a good writing relationship, you know, really good.
And then we pulled the band in, the rest of the band, and we did some rough cuts of some songs that Marty and I had written.
We would get together and just jam over the songs. Sometimes just while we're there, somebody would start playing a little something, and before you know it, it would develop into a song, which was really cool.
Around 2014, Gerard returned to the stage after being asked to join another 80s rock cover band. That sparked interest in reuniting Diamond's Edge in late 2017.
Will and some of the other guys from Diamond's Edge came out and started watching me play. And of course, that kind of triggered an itch for everybody. They said, hey, let's get the band back together. You know, it was almost like the Blues Brothers were putting the band back together.
Well, I kind of started getting that fire back and started talking to Gerard again about maybe sometime down the line getting Diamond's Edge back together. And first he was like, yeah, sounds great, but he was a little skeptical because some of the other guys in the band didn't even have instruments anymore.
I hadn't played bass in 20 years plus. I didn't even have an instrument when Willie called me and asked me if I would be interested in any type of reunion gig or, you know, something of that nature. And I was like, well, you know, I'd have to re-up my gear if we were going to do it.
I had spoken with Marty a few times, and he just wasn't interested. He said, I don't want to do that. That's not what I want to do. And so they talked to me, and I said, well, you know, it's fine. Marty doesn't want to do it, and I can't do Diamond's Edge without Marty.
You know, in fact, I told Gerard, I said, I'll never.
Will just started really pushing for that and pulling the guys in, you know, and I, of course, I was like, I really wanted it to happen because I felt like it was unfinished business, you know, that I left and I shouldn't have.
I had something happen in my life, and Willie came by one day and said, well, everybody says if you do it, I'll do it. So I said, yeah, what the hell, you know, I decided, yeah, I need to do something.
By 2018, the original 5 members, along with the new drummer, agreed to begin rehearsals for a Diamond's Edge reunion. Through all the years, Diamond's Edge worked with several drummers, never really finding the right fit. However, on this go-round, things are different.
And I said, well, you know, what drummer are we going to get? You know, we had so many different drummers, and we approached our first drummer, and he wasn't interested.
The two that I had in mind, William Gonzalez and Fernando Del Bosque, at the time, timing just wasn't right for them.
I approached the drummer of the band I was playing, and funny story is that he remembers Diamond's Edge.
I was familiar with Diamond's Edge since about the age of 15. Interesting story, I was at the beach out at Sea Sculptures one summer and walked around, you know, looking at the girls and checking out the scenery, and I walked up to a stage setup and saw this enormous, you know, scaffolding stage with a big old, you know, setup of a band. And I asked one of the guys that was at the board, I said, hey, who's playing here today? And the guy goes, it's Diamond's Edge. And I said, man, one of these days I'm gonna play for a band. I wanna play for a band like that.
You know, 25, 30 years later, it's funny Gerard asked him if you want to play Diamond's Edge, you know, the same band that kind of inspired him.
And I was like, wow, this guy's great, you know?
I'm fortunate that I was tapped to be able to be a part of this, because these guys are all, in my opinion, they're some of the best musicians I've ever worked with. And I've worked with a lot of them. Over the years, I've been fortunate enough to play with a lot of Grammy Award winning, they're Latin Grammy Award winners, but they're still Grammy Award winners nonetheless. I feel fortunate, you know, I've told the guys in the band, you guys are second to none, man. You guys are some of the best I've ever worked with, and that says a lot.
Well, we were so lucky when we got Roland, because, you know, we get along so great. He has the same sense of humor we all do, and he likes the music we do.
And he said, and the camaraderie amongst y'all is just incredible. He says, y'all are family. And you know, really we are. My brother's in the band, my cousin's in the band. The other guitar player I've known him, 46 years? You know, see, he's like my brother. And Jeff, he kind of came in and we were close to him before he ever played in the band. So we were a family, and Roland fit right in.
It's funny how so many years later here he is the drummer of Diamond's Edge. You know, it's pretty fascinating. I guess it was meant to be.
The newly reunited group played before a small audience at a private party of family and friends on November 30th of that year. By February 1st of 2019, the band gave their first public performance in over 25 years. Jamin Lynch also reunited with the band as their permanent sound engineer, creating an impressive mix solidified by the advent of digital technology.
Everything that used to take, you know, a huge trailer for me to haul it in, now I can put that in a small trailer, and I have more features accessible.
Diamond's Edge continues to perform at all the popular venues in the Corpus Christi area.
I think it's sweeter this time around. Everybody's more mature. Everybody knows their instruments, intimately.
One of the reasons we sound like we do is because, one, we're all good friends, and you know, we hang out together and we do things together, and we have a lot of camaraderie.
Some musicians can't or won't stand the test of time. Some of them just haven't lived long enough, unfortunately. Others just didn't have the diversity to be able to do the type of music that we do. To some degree, I'm playing the music that I want to hear and I love, but it really doesn't matter what I enjoy. It's what the audience enjoys.
And we have a good time on stage, and I think it shows. And that, the audience loves that, loves to see that.
Whether we play well together or not, we get along and we're enjoying what we do. And we're going to continue to do that as long as we possibly can.
We all love each other that much. And people tell us that. Says, man, y'all are having a great time. Y'all get along. It looks awesome.
There is this feeling on stage just before we start, where you'll see everybody running around hugging or fist bumping, you know, let's do this type attitude. And there's just this, it's a family love feeling, because we all know each other. We all know what we're gonna do. There's nothing like it.
Ooh, shine, baby, shine.